to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You do a lot of things. This is really cool. You're like a woman of many traits. You got to tell our viewers all about you.
Okay, so my name is NeFesha. I'm the executive director of the African American Museum here in Fresno. And so I love culture. I love history. I consider myself a bearer of culture, but I also am an artist and an athlete. I have a history in athletics, from playing college basketball to then moving on and starting to box. I fought with Team USA, traveled around the world as an athlete, and kind of landed on urban development and community engagement and the arts.
I love that. And like, what was this story? You were supposed to go to the Olympics, but then there was
the weight class. So during the 2012 Olympics, leading up to it, they only had 3 weight classes that they opened up for women. And that was the first time in 100 years that women's boxing was in the Olympics. So they gave us 3 weight classes, and my weight sat right in between. So I tried to go down, I tried to go up, and it just was not really working.
How much off were you?
I was off by, well, I was weighing typically around 118 pounds. I was a bantamweight fighter. But to lose that weight, being already small, going down to 112 pounds was really difficult. So
yeah, then you lose a lot of that mass. So then what was the high? What was it?
So I had to go up to 132.
Whoa, that is a big difference.
Yeah, imagine me there. So I put on all this weight. I cut out my running, which meant my endurance was lessened because I couldn't run as much because I was.
So you're either going to be really fatigued because you're underweight, or you're going to be like weighed down because you're overweight.
Overweight. Yep.
What an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a dilemma, but I had so much fun traveling and fighting with Team USA. I won 2 national championships, and it taught me so much of what I do now as a executive director, as an artist, as a person that practiced discipline. It taught me how to, maneuver in the world that I'm living in now.
So did you get along with everybody on the team? Like, how does that work, the camaraderie? Do you guys travel together? I really have no idea.
Yeah. I remember one trip to the World Championships in Barbados. It was 3 weeks. We went through, I think it was 4 weeks, because we had 1 week in Miami training with Bonnie Canino, who ended up being my trainer after that trip. I moved to Miami, lived down there with her for quite some time and trained with her. But then we spent 3 weeks in Barbados, and we had every team from around the world there, representing every culture from India to Egypt. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. And did we get along all the time? No, but we we gave each other space, and we were all coming from different weight classes, so there wasn't like a whole lot of competition. It was
you either were or what you were or you weren't.
Yeah, we were all successful in our weight class, so it wasn't that competition.
That's good.
That way. Yeah, the competition was between like the British team and the U.S. team. So
that's
that was
good with the camaraderie. Like you kept it together.
Yep, but it was a lot of fun. We competed at the highest level, and we trained, we partied, we had fun. Yeah.
How exciting! Wow. And so that's really cool. I'm really fascinated by how you went from the sports to the arts, because that's something that I'm into. I'm athletic, but then I love the arts. So how did you go from all that to coming here and doing what you're doing now?
I like to try a little bit of everything and see what kind of sticks and what works. And so as an artist, I've always been an artist. I've been a writer. I write poetry. I've written 2 books so far. One of poetry, one kind of like a autobiographical book. And then I write a lot of poetry, and I write a lot of letters. People that I love or that I want to just remember me, I write letters too. And I've been doing that for a really long time, probably my whole life. So expressing myself creatively has always been something. When I stopped boxing, I moved back to Philadelphia area, which is where I'm from. I'm from South Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia. And I started working with a community organization called Orange Corner Arts. I went there just to volunteer, and I saw kids making mosaics. And at the time, I felt like really broken, because if you know, as an athlete, you invest all your time into your athletics. And for that to kind of no longer be who you are. Yeah, it's like I got to rebuild my life and figure out what am I doing, because I met with some, I was looking at going into modeling, met with some agents, I met with some UFC managers, and I just thought I don't want to have my face smashed in the ground during UFC. I like to be standing up when I fight, And I decided modeling was not the direction I wanted to go into because I just didn't know if I had a chance with it, it was just another chance, I felt like. And so I moved back home. I was at a place of really feeling really like empty and broken. And I saw kids making mosaics, and they were breaking up these glass pieces and creating something out of it. And I felt like that was a metaphor for my life at the time. And so from there, I started making mosaics. And I took plates and glass and every type of material you can think of and started to create art. And it really helped me to put my life back together. I felt like it was a moment where God was teaching me something, and it's carried me literally to where we are today.
Wow, what a story. In your autobiography that you said that you wrote, do you talk a lot about these experiences?
Briefly, it was specifically, that one is called Notes of a Nazarite. So I have my faith, and I follow that with a strong conviction. So I had taken, if you know the story of Samson in the Bible, he was a Nazarite. And so I was like, I want to be like Samson. I always felt like a warrior. And so I had taken a vow. So it's kind of that story of like my Nazarite vow. But that was a few years back.
I love that. Where can we purchase these books?
I just took it down from Amazon not that long ago. I know, I need to put it back up there, but I have copies. So if people are interested, I can give copies.
So it's that one. What's the other book? You said 2 books.
Oh, it's called My Room Full of Unfinished Mosaics. And it's a book of poetry, really long title. But I came up with that title. A friend of mine came up with the title, actually, because I told her, I said, I'm in my room full of unfinished mosaics. And she was like, that should be the name of your poetry book. And so it's like all about that. I call it a coming of age book of poetry as I'm finding myself.
So how'd you end up in Fresno?
So my best friend has a nonprofit organization called Royal Roots. And I was working with her from a distance, doing a lot of work remotely. We teach, we were doing biblical studies. She still continues to do that. It's her organization. But one of the key things we do is agriculture education. And so we were teaching agriculture to kids and building community gardens. And we had a farm with goats. And at the time, one moment, we had a horse. I still have my horse. Lots of dogs, lots of cats, lots of chickens. And so I was there helping her. And it's interesting because when I first moved to Fresno, it was 2019. 1 year later, COVID hit. So it was like I felt like I had just got here. COVID hit, and we turned her garage into a classroom, invited all of her nieces and nephews, about 10 of them, to come and do school. So we did school in her garage for an entire year. The kids went back to school 2 grade levels ahead.
I bet.
Because we incorporated agriculture into the education, into the curriculum. It was an incredibly fun experience, and we treated it just like school. They got grades. Well, it was a different form of grading. It wasn't like ABC, is that right? Yeah, ABC.
Yeah.
It wasn't exactly like that, but it was very, structured, and we had lunchtime, and we had outdoor time, and they walked around in the morning and fed the animals. So it was very interactive, and they went back to school ahead.
That is just. Are you guys going to try to somehow incorporate that in actual curriculum in schools? I know when people try things like that and it works, is there a way to try to do that?
At some point we will be doing some more of that.
Right.
She writes curriculum. She does a lot of programming and is getting her doctorate right now. So at some point we'll be incorporating all of it into both of our work.
So how did you get involved with the museum?
Oh my goodness, last year for Juneteenth celebration every year around June 19th, we were there. I went, and a friend of mine had asked me to help paint the walls to prepare an exhibit because nobody had been in the museum for about 3 years. It wasn't being utilized. So it was just a blank slate. And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to pour back into my community and to practice something that I love, which is focusing on African American history and the arts and the culture. I have a magazine called Black Folk Art where I study art history. And so it was very fitting. And so I painted the walls with him, helped him put this exhibit on. And then from there, we had another art hop July 7th. And from there, I met with the board, and then they decided that I was a good fit to become the executive director. And we've taken off from there since we started, with pretty much nothing. 3 years of nothing happening, which meant not too many funds coming through. We just had a gala 2 weeks ago, and we sold out. 500 people. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where do we get on board? Where can we go and when can we go to like the events happening? What do we have to follow?
Yeah, we have, so on March 18th, we have our open mic, and we do Art Hop every first Thursday of the month. And on our website, which is a long acronym, but it's aahcmsjv.com. If you go there, I try to keep the website.
Why is everything with you long words, long letters, girl?
I know.
At least nobody else has it, so that's a good
Nobody
thing.
else has it. But if you just type in African American Museum Fresno, it'll pop up, and just click website on there on Google, and you'll find it. So it's pretty easy to find.
So you're the director. So you get to be in charge of like if somebody has an art piece that they want to put in there, they go, and then if you want to purge it, what happens when you want art from somewhere else? If you want art from Florida and you're like, I want to bring it here, you contact them, and then. Often, how does that work? You guys don't purchase, it's all like a free thing. Did you guys trade art? How does that work when you get art?
Yeah, I mean, our museum is growing. Typically, museums have an acquisitions budget. So if they're interested in buying something, then they have it in the budget. If it's a couple $1,000s to hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to buy art. With our museum, a lot of our art has been donated. We have art from the artist Will Portis in our museum, and he's a well-known artist here in California. We have local artists that are currently up. We have quilters with the Heritage Quilters, so they have their work up right now. We worked with the superintendent's office, so right now our Black History Into the Future exhibit is in collaboration with the superintendent's office, so we have kids art up from the Martin Luther King art contest.
I bet they love that.
Yeah, it was lovely. It's going down in about another week. We have our next exhibit that's going to be coming up. It's in partnership with Black Wellness and Prosperity Center. And that's going to be focused on Black maternal health. And so we, when it comes to art, it's a lot of connecting with people, conversations. I have people contacting us daily, asking us if they can present their art, if they can put it up. And so I have a studio visit this week coming up with an artist. I can't remember her last name. I think it's Kristen, and I can't remember her last name, but she's a clay maker, and she does pottery. And so I'll be going to her studio this week just to check out her work and see if it's a good fit for possibly a solo show at our museum.
Wow, that's so much work. Do you have like guidelines you have to follow? Can you do as many exhibits as you want a month? What's kind of the structure? I have no idea. This is really fascinating to me.
Well, it's interesting because we've had a structure over the years that I've inherited, and I'm trying to add to it.
Okay.
So there's yearly we have certain exhibits that we have up, but then when it comes to art, when it comes to the culture, being able to share in different ways, such as this Black Maternal Health Week, which is second week of April. We're going to expand it for an entire month where that exhibit will be up. And then after that, we'll be preparing for our Juneteenth. We're also working with the Philharmonic coming up, so we'll be doing a presentation on June 11th with the Philharmonic. They have it's Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and so there's a man that's coming that will be a part of that presentation who has a symphony called Justice Symphony. And it's all about civil rights. And so we'll be telling the stories of the music that came about during civil rights. So
you'll have the art and the music together. I love that. That gets people all in the mindset. That's really cool.
Right, exactly.
And so it's with the culture. Do you want to represent a lot of Black artists or artists that portray Black art? Is it both? The combination.
It's
of both.
I think that's important. And when we think about Blackness, that question is constantly something that we need to challenge. Is it just Black Americans? Do we have of the diaspora as a whole? Do we have, people from, let's say, Britain that come from Africa that live in Britain, right? Or even when we have like Afro-Latino, right? So I think of like one person that I absolutely love, Celia Cruz. I listen to her music regularly. Well, she was Afro-Cuban. So we have to think about it a little bit broader, I think. And even when we talk about art from Fresno, or not just art, but culture that's from Fresno and history from Fresno, we have such a broad and diverse perspective, but then our museum represents the San Joaquin Valley, so how are we representing Bakersfield, Merced, all the way up into Oakland? And so those are the questions that it's my job to question and then to begin to answer those questions.
That's so much work. And it's like, it's really cool because like you're really diverse. So it's hard to be like, you have to bring it back to Fresno and bring it back to California. But then like you said, you're really broad. You're like, okay, well, I've been in Europe, I've been here. So I want to bring that subculture, this subculture. So that has to be a lot of decision making to.
Right. And I've had the opportunity to travel the world. And so I think that those opportunities really broaden perspective, you know, and I think about how can we tell our story of the San Joaquin Valley to the people in different countries, you know, because I think our story is really interesting. And so that's something that I work on to develop an international museum with the specificity of African American life in the San Joaquin Valley.
Wow. And then how did you get a crash course in the San Joaquin Valley? Because you're not even from here.
So when I moved here, my best friend and her family, they've been deeply invested in this area for a very long time, for over 100 years, probably more. They were the first founders of a Black daycare in California.
Wow.
Black-owned daycare. And so they gave me, as I like to say, they kind of adopted me and fostered me and taught me about the Valley, taught me about Black history here. And then when I came into the museum, there's a plethora of knowledge and information there. And then the other thing is I prioritize conversations. And so more important than anything that I do in a day is the conversations that I have. And so as I listen and I talk to people, I learn. And in those conversations, I learn about our history. I had someone come just last week. Her name was Victoria Young. She was the first Black female police officer, I want to say. I might be getting that wrong, in Fresno. And she was a judo champion. And so she came by, and her picture's actually up on the wall in the museum. And so we talked. I sat with her for a good hour and just talked. And that's what I mean. I prioritize conversations because the history is in the people.
This is so fascinating. So where do we follow you? What's your Instagram? What's your Facebook? Tell our viewers how we can keep up with you, because this is cool.
Yeah, personally, my Instagram is at NeFesha Ruth. That's NeFesha Ruth. And you're going to see a little bit of everything. Just, I think earlier today or yesterday, I posted me and my horse, Tennessee. I've been riding him for about 3.5 years now. I have worked him. He's worked me. He was wild when I met him, and he's still a little wild, but I'm still a little wild too, so it's okay. And then, you'll see a little bit of everything, a little bit about the museum, a little bit about my personal life. I try to be transparent. I try to have fun. I tell people all the time, like, even in the midst of the most stressful situations, let's just have fun. And that's the way I've determined to live my life. People say, you're never stressed out. Yeah, I am, but I just determined that I'm going to have fun in the midst of whatever it is. I'm not going to live a life where I'm stressed out. I've dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with all of it. And I just had to make a decision, like, that's not going to be the life that I live. And so on my Instagram, you're going to see a lot of fun things. And it is legit. It's me living life and doing the things I love to do.
And so what's kind of like, I know you have so many different plans in your life and there's so many directions you could go. What are some of the visions you have, and especially with the museum? What are some of the things you hope to see happen?
Yeah, one of my biggest goals in life is to rebuild this museum, to leave an imprint for this community, to remember what was done in this moment, and to do what some people have said was impossible, and to bring community together, and so that we can see what we can do when we all walk in oneness and unity. And that's not just with the African American community. You know, I work with a lot of other communities to make sure that we understand each other, we understand perspectives, and I believe that in any city that has thriving cultural institutions becomes an overall thriving city. And so I want all of our cultural institutions to thrive. So that's one of my goals. The other one is just to live a life that people can be inspired by.
And do you see yourself kind of traveling and, like, after you build up this one, going to another museum somewhere else? And then I
do think about that a lot. Yeah, of what does it look like after this? 20 years from now and 10 years from now. I don't know how long it will take. But I'm a builder. I like to take broken things and piece them together like mosaics. And so I want to see communities thrive, and I know that I have the skill and the vision to build. So. And
where can we get, if we want to purchase some of your art pieces and look at them, where can we find all this?
Oh, my art pieces? Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm about to start working on a new art piece. This has nothing to do with mosaics. there's a few artists that have been inspiration for me when it comes to this, but it has to do with the boxing. It's going to be me like punching a heavy bag, but it's going to have canvas and paint, and then I'll stretch that canvas and have it framed. So that'll be on my social media as I work on that project. And then the rest of my art, it's mostly, if you contact me, I don't have it online too much because I've really been focused my energy on the museum.
Is there some in the museum?
There is some in the museum.
Oh,
so if you come by the
okay.
museum, you'll always see my art in the museum. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on my show
Thank you
today.
for having me.
Fascinating. I want you to come back like every 6 months.
I'll be here. I'll be here.
You're a CMAC director we need to put out there too.
Well, yeah, I'm on the board of directors here at CMAC. Shout out to CMAC and shout out to Brian, who is the executive director here. I mean, amazing work. I fully support CMAC. I always tell everybody about them because the resources that we have here and the ability to do a show like this in this space is a gift to our community.
It really, it's a gift to us involved in the process.
Yes.
So
yeah. So
thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
Absolutely. Great to see you.
So tell our viewers who you are and about our lovely guest.
Okay. My name is Dean Audet. The company's name is The Behavior Dog Tours. Little play on doctors.
I love that.
So we specialize in behavior training. And I brought 2 of my 12 dogs with me. The black one is Mohegan, and the fox red one is Quincy.
So 12 of your dogs.
Yes.
You teach other dogs, right, as well?
We do. So I've got customers all over the world thanks to modern technology, and we basically work with any person, any breed, any age, any behavior issue. In the last 16 years, we've helped to rehabilitate over 5,200 dogs. All of them were 70, 80, 90% improved in 2 to 4 days. I know, it sounds unrealistic, right?
I mean, it does make, I believe it. I'm just like, wow, that's really awesome. And then even virtually, because you were saying that you train the trainer, I mean, you train the owners or whatever across virtually. Is that as effective as you being there doing it yourself, or it just depends?
Yeah, and I understand where that question's coming from, because in our society, we're just used to dog trainers that train dogs. And that's what 99.9% of the dog trainers in North America do. That's not what we do. We are completely opposite ends of the spectrum. We're a very unique niche company. There's only one other company like us in all of North America, actually. So in the behavior training, I'm not a dog trainer. I'm actually a human educator.
That is awesome. Well, that's because I hear a lot of times they're trained and they go home and then all the bad habits, if you're not keeping it up, there's no point in getting them trained. So that makes sense that you teach the people how to do that. And so as long as they listen to you.
Yeah, and do you want to know like the main reason why dogs have behavior issues?
It's all the owners, isn't it?
It's language barrier. It's because we in our society have become so comfortable with dogs in our lives that we actually humanize them without realizing it. So we're using human psychology while they're listening in dogs. So it's like you and I trying to become best friends, but you're from Russia and I'm from China, and the relationship isn't going anywhere. For 2 years we try, but we've got this language barrier. and then somebody comes along and teaches you to speak my language fluently, well, now in 2 days, our relationship can go somewhere that it hasn't gone in the last 2 years of us trying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you really are the dog whisperer.
Yeah. So it comes down to relationship, and any successful relationship has got to be built on effective communication.
Right.
And then mutual trust, mutual respect. So if you've got a dog that's maybe, attacking other dogs, well, okay, so you don't trust the dog with other dogs, so we know the relationship isn't where we need it to be. Back up, how's the communication? Well, if you're doing human and they're doing dog, communication isn't doing well. So that's where we start, effective communication. So we teach the humans dog.
Right. Have you written a book on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm actually in the process of writing that book right now, so it's a lot of fun.
And so you've been doing this for about 30 years, you said.
Yes, I'm 60 now. I've been doing it pretty much my whole life. So I grew up farming and ranching and working with this system my whole life with dogs and with horses. But the horses, I don't make a living doing it. That's my fun. That's my Zen yoga time.
So you train, wow, okay. Interesting. And so you have 12 dogs? How can you have so many dogs?
I used to have 32 dogs, so in my brain, I've kind of pared down a little bit.
No way,
First of
really?
all, dogs are just my absolute passion. I just absolutely love them. But up until recently, we were breeding Labrador Retrievers as well. So
you breed them and then you send them off on their way. So when you were breeding them, did you teach them? I mean, you kind of and then you just teach the owners before you pass them off, or not really?
So for our dogs, my kids and I have a little hobby where we do hunting and hunting trials, bird hunting. And as far as the puppies and selling them, there's very little training onto them. Now, careful, he's going to cuddle with you forever if you do that.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my! So who came up with the company?
I grew up with this system since I was a little kid, so it kind of accidentally happened where I just started helping more and more and more and more people,
And then they're like, "You gotta put this
realized
in a-"
I'm getting so busy, I guess I might as well do this full time, and it just kind of mushroomed from helping a few friends into now we help people all over the world, thanks to modern technology.
That is so awesome! Wow. So what are some of the worst stories you've heard? So have you heard of some dogs actually really attacking people and then kind of coming around? And how do you even get to that point where you can really help them?
Yeah. So many years ago, we used to do our training live and in person with the dogs and in group seminars. And the worst dog that I ever dealt with was a 9-year-old female German Shepherd, 95 pounds. We lived on a ranch. The owner brought the dog out to us to meet, and she had the leather leash wrapped around her hand, turned around to reach back into her SUV to grab something, and the dog lunged and sit down and pulled so hard on that leather leash that he snapped the leash on that poor lady's hand. I can't imagine the torque and how that must have felt. Now the dog is running through the driveway, 13-foot strides. I went back and measured it in the snow later. Flying through the air, head sideways, teeth aiming for my throat, full on, I'm going to kill you. And clearly, I'm still here to tell the story. So basically, the owners came through the seminar. It was a pretty extreme case, so it took 4 days. But in 4 days, that family got that dog about 90% improved ballpark. And that dog was able to walk beside other dogs and other people, whereas in the past, it was lunging at butterflies, trying to kill them, like a jet flying over. What do they fly at, 30, 40,000 feet? The dog wanted to kill anything that moved. So 4 days later, it's walking beside other people. I wouldn't have trusted her 100%, but she was about 90% improved. So.
But how does that even happen? Why are some dogs wired like that and some dogs aren't, in your experience?
Yeah, and honestly, it's not the dog, it's not the dog's fault, and it's not the owner's fault. The problem is that we just have this massive language barrier. So, if you and I went to Japan to go learn to drive a car, I don't speak Japanese, do you?
Right.
Hopefully they're not going to let us behind the wheel. So we're going to have these massive issues trying to accomplish anything, right? And in that Japanese culture, perhaps, I would be offending people because I don't understand the culture.
Well, I'm saying some dogs have a more aggressive nature than others. And what have you kind of noticed? Do you think all dogs are equally aggressive?
Yep. The absolute worst dog I've ever dealt with was a wiener dog, little Dachshund. And it's mostly the small dogs. And the big dogs get the bad rap because they appear scarier, and that's what the media covers because they're...
That's been my experience. I've always thought those smaller dogs are the scary ones.
Generally, the news stations are selling sensationalism with the big breeds. But the hospitals in the United States used to keep track of bite by breed. Pit Bull was 47 on the list.
Wow.
But you guarantee you that, according to the media...
So what was number one?
Number one was Golden Retriever.
I'm starting to hear more about that. I always thought they were the calmer ones.
Which is just fear-biting. And then the next one was Dachshund, little wiener dogs, and then Jack Russell Terrier, and then Chihuahua. The next 11 were all small breeds.
Wow.
But the popular, the German Shepherd, the Doberman, they were all in the last 50 out of the 100.
So what can you divulge? I know that this is part of your training, your business, and you're going to write a book, so you can't give away all your secrets. Mm-hmm. But what do you see that we're messing up with the most as dog owners? Like, what are we doing that's just all bad.com and we should stop doing it?
Okay, so the way that you're asking the question is extremely important. And you're asking about mechanics. Like, if the dog does this, how do we stop it? Or what do we do to prevent that from happening? Lay down. And that's really important. So if I can kind of just go off on that a little bit, think about state of mind. What we need to accomplish is a state of mind like these two that are psychologically calm and under control in all situations. All right? So if we've got a dog that is out of control, it's okay for them to go ahead and pull the trigger and do one of those behaviors. So if I can be really extreme and talk about a person who is perhaps committed one of the mass shootings, clearly that's an unstable state of mind.
Okay.
And to get that person to not do that behavior anymore, it's not going to be treat training or a fancy leash or a fancy call. You see, it's not going to, all of those mechanics aren't going to matter. But what's important is we get that person into a stable state of mind so that they're no longer willing to pull the trigger. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with the dog. So how do we get them into a balanced state of mind? And once they're in that balanced state of mind, then they're never going to want to pull the trigger on any of those behaviors anyways. As an example, getting overexcited and jumping up on a person is a chaotic, neurotic, out of control state of mind. And it's like you and I walking down the sidewalk, never having met each other before, and as we pass each other on the sidewalk, I spit in your face. So in the book that we were talking about, that takes up an entire chapter because we in our society massively misinterpret that. Our society thinks, oh, she loves me. It's got nothing to do with the dog loving me or being happy to see me.
It's just their neuroticism.
Exactly. It's chaotic, neurotic, out of control, spitting in your face. And we take any dog, so it's that unstable state of mind, they're willing to pull the trigger. We take any dog that thinks it's okay to do that out into the wilderness and allow that dog to do that to an alpha wolf, it's death instantly. So it's such a serious infraction in their psychology that it's punishable by death. And in our world, we think, oh, they love me. Wow. So in many cases, the human psychology and the dog psychology are so far apart. So, in general, we humans are saying red, and the dog says got it and goes and does blue, and we're sitting there going, stupid dog. But you see how it's the language barrier? So if we could, theoretically, if we could educate every dog owner in the world and have every dog in a stable state of mind, we wouldn't have behavior issues, or we would have very, very few.
Yeah. And so when does this book come out? I'm really vivid.
You want the first copy? Is that what you want? But think of it like this, if I can be silly, we're not going to take an alligator into our home and use human psychology and expect them to act like a human. And I'm not going to say I'm the alligator's, dad or mom, but we do that. There are fur babies. I'm the dad. We do that in our society all the time, and we humanize them, and that's what gets them into trouble.
So you're always going to have to let them know who's in charge at all times. So that's something that's very important in the training. Yeah,
but if we've got effective communication, mutual trust, mutual respect, it's the relationship is just casual. Like, these two are just sitting here chill. I don't have to, let them know that I'm in charge. It's a given. It's just casual and calm and relaxed and peaceful and enjoyable for me and for them.
So when we are purchasing a dog, what are things that we should look at? And what's like the steps that we should do?
Good question. So I recommend that people look at energy levels, okay? So as an example, a greyhound has got the ability to run really fast and sprint, but then they want to laze around the house for about 18 hours a day. So that's a low energy dog. They're very, very low. Some of the English labs are very, very low. That's not going to work for somebody who's got a very active lifestyle. And then on the converse, if I'm, a senior citizen and I lead a very, relaxed lifestyle, probably a Border Collie or an Australian Shepherd are not going to be ideal for me either, because they want about 16 hours of exercise a day. So look at the energy level, match it to your family, and because dogs are either low, medium, high, or cattle dog.
And then what do we have to come to you? That's the next step?
I mean,
That seems like the next step.
You're welcome to contact us on Facebook at the Behavior Dog Tours. I'm happy to recommend, yes, that dog is going to match your lifestyle, or no, it won't. But usually the people that are getting hold of us, they've already made the wrong decision, and they're
Right.
contacting us
It's
and saying,
damage control.
no help.
And then is it okay for us to sleep with the dogs?
I don't have a problem, whether the dog's on the couch or not, the dog's on the bed or not, so long as the dog is not, being dominant, protecting me, dominating the bed, owning the bed. Anybody should be able to walk up to that bed with me in it without being attacked by the dog, kind of thing. Or same thing if the dog is sitting on your lap on the couch and I come up to say hi, if the dog is in that defensive protective mode, that is an extremely stressed dog. So can I address the stress for a second?
Yeah.
Dogs that have behavior issues are under massive stress 24 hours a day. Wow. And it's just like you and I, if we're stressed like that, it's going to take a toll on our lifespan. It's going to have some health issues later on in life. Agreed?
Right.
It's no different with them. And then we know that it's going to take time off of our lifespan. With the dogs, unfortunately, the scientific number we know now is somewhere between 2, 3, 4 years off their lifespan. That is just a massive chunk of time in dog years, and I'm not good with that. That's why I've dedicated my life to this. This is my passion, and my kids joke that I may never retire, and they may be right.
What's the difference between cats and dogs?
You're asking the wrong person on the
Well,
cats
what have
thing.
you
I am
noticed?
not a
'Cause
cat expert.
I bet people come to you and say that. Do you notice anything of your training that can correlate or transfer to that, to being a cat owner?
I grew up farming and ranching, and we've always had cats outdoors, and they're really just completely different animals. It really is oranges and apples.
Wow.
There's very, very little
So you can't really take any of the
correlation.
trainings with that and then apply it to a cat?
No, I mean, for
Because a lot of things you're saying I would think would be similar with stresses, defense mechanisms. I would imagine some of these behaviors are similar. So that's what I was kind of wondering.
yeah, I haven't seen too many behaviors that are similar. And
Really? Okay.
as much as I've tried to influence some of the training with my cats, it is nothing like dogs. I can
Wow,
tell you that there's
okay.
no overlap.
Interesting.
There's overlap with dogs and horses, though.
Okay.
Dogs and horses can actually communicate with each other.
Interesting.
It is interesting. When I was a kid, we saw one of our German Shepherds would often go and ride one of our horses. And it was only that dog with that horse. And those two, that dog rode that horse more than we did. Probably rode that horse for about 12 years. So either and the dog's a predator and the horse is prey. So either the dog asked permission to get on or the horse invited the dog up. Either way, there was some form of communication between them. Would you agree?
Yeah, that sounds like it. So what's your contact information for us to get a hold of you?
Probably easiest is Facebook, the Behavior Dog Tours, or I can give you our phone number. You can post it up on the screen
yeah.
perhaps. And info@thebehaviordogtours.com is our email address.
And then we, like everyone that made the bad choices that you're talking about, they can get a hold of you. And like you said, it's about 4 days of a process.
Yeah.
So people aren't with you for, you don't have clients for years and years and years. Like you help them with that, then they'll come back to you maybe if they want a different dog or something,
The
right?
extreme cases are 4 days. Most are going to be 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
That just seems so awesome. So once an owner kind of understands and gets all these training and tips from you, are they pretty set for the next time they get another pet? Have you noticed that they just transfer on and they start teaching the good habits?
Excellent question, for sure. It's kind of like learning how to drive a car. Once you learn how to drive a car, you can drive any car, and it's a skill set that you have for life. So we offer I always tell people that graduate from our system, I'm here as a resource for you. Contact me anytime. We get callbacks from less than 1%. So we must be doing something right.
I mean, that just sounds great to not beat yourself over the head about, you constantly bark out commands that aren't being listened to.
I don't want to live like that, and I don't want my dogs to live like that.
So you bridge the gap between all that.
Yeah. I'm at the age now where I just want to have a nice, calm, quiet, peaceful household.
Right.
We have 4 of our dogs in the house, 3 males and a female, and it's a pretty quiet, chill household.
This is so incredible.
Except for the teenagers. That's a totally different story.
They're not as easy to train, right?
Definitely not as easy as the dogs.
So do they know any special tricks, these two?
They don't know any tricks. Yeah, I guess one of the biggest jokes is when people ask me to do a trick, I tell the dog sit and then play stupid and then good dog. And people are expecting some massive trick out of me. Honestly, I'm so busy helping people with dogs with their behavior issues that I don't have time to train my own dogs. He's a hunting champion. My kids compete in hunting competitions. Other than that, we really don't have too much time to train our own dogs. So what you're seeing here is just relationship. My dog is the black one. He's 5.5 years old. He's probably our most obedient dog, but I've never spent a day training him.
Wow.
It's just relationship. It's just effective communication, mutual trust, mutual respect every day.
That's incredible.
It's just relationship.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show. And then when I'm ready to get a dog, I'm definitely going to contact you.
Sounds good.
Thank you for coming on my show today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so this is really cool. I'm digging it, the whole story, the everything. Tell us about this book.
All right, so Candelabra is my first book. And an interesting story as to how it came to be is I am from a filmmaking background. I made a few short films, and then after years of planning, I decided I was going to make my first feature. And I had a friend from college who lent me his acting class, and for auditions. And I found the most amazing cast, spent 2 years shooting the film. I mean, I wrote the screenplay, of course, and I spent 2 years shooting the film, and my car was broken into one day, and I had my laptop bag in there, and yeah, I should have backed it up online. I just never really thought about it. I didn't think I would, be in a position to, need it, and but yeah, it was gone. 2 years worth of work.
No
gone.
way.
Yeah. It was a hard drive in the laptop bag that was what the rough cut was on. And I mean, like rough cut, I was almost completely done with the shoot, and I was just editing. So
I want to cry.
it was depressing. I mean, it was really bad. It was traumatic.
You didn't want to start over again?
I tried, but by that point in time, a lot of my actors were moving on to other things.
Were they upset with you?
They couldn't. If they were, they didn't show it. I mean, they were
really
just
nice.
all, it really was. They were all really kind of sad, sad about the project, but they were very supportive. And that was part of the reason I wanted to reshoot, because I wanted to do right by them. But it didn't really work out that way. Like about half of them were moving on to other things, and they couldn't do it anymore. And I just didn't want to reshoot it with a new cast. I already had kind of a vision, and that was that. But an idea started formulating in my head after a while. I could at least do my characters justice, because I loved the story. It was a horror anthology. There's about 5 stories in total, and they were linked together. It wasn't like just separate little. But my favorite story out of the 5 stories that were going to be in the film was Candelabra. And that shoot, coincidentally, was just magical. I mean, my cast was amazing. They were so talented, and at the same time, they just knew how to have fun, and that's what it's all about. So I just kind of was still just kind of living that in my head, and I didn't want to really let it go just yet. And I've been writing my entire life. I mean, my first story that I actually wrote, completed story, I think I was 8 years old. Hilarious, that's another story. But so I've just always been writing, and obviously I've written screenplays and short stories, poetry, blah, 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 what have you, just kind of whenever I had off time. And so I thought, well, maybe now's the time to finally write that book I've always wanted to write, And so I went on ahead and adapted Candelabra, which was the first story in my horror anthology, into a novella. And I mean, I'm really pleased with how it came out. You know, it kind of helped heal my heart after losing my film.
What's the process, like the transformation? Because this is all very different. Screenplays, books.
Yeah.
Now you're doing a screenplay to a book. What do you think? Explain that.
So it's, yeah. So it's definitely a different thing, writing a screenplay versus writing a book. And even when I was writing screenplays, like there's this vision in mind to, you know, it's going to be a film one day. So screenplays are blueprints. If you're not picturing how it's going to be, they're very unfun to write. I mean, you just have to communicate enough to the production crew to make it happen, you know. When you're writing a book or a novel, you're creating a movie inside someone's head,
Right.
you know? So you get to be descriptive and you get to make it extremely interesting. You're telling a story, you know, and like literally telling a story as opposed to just like jotting down blueprints for what's eventually going to be, you know, a completed creative project. It's complete when I finish the story. And so it was interesting because I was still I still wanted to make movies, and I may go back to it one day, but I just had to get this story down. The characters I had to give them life, you know?
Right.
And so I started writing it, and I was having so much fun. And it was just really just a lot more, it was a lot more of a fun process writing a story as opposed to writing a screenplay. Because the screenplay is like kind of the long game, but the story, you're like, okay, it's in my head, I'm getting it out. You know, just if you know how to put words together and, you know, write a complete story, you've got it. That's the art right there.
Did you feel more like you had more freedom in this? Because I think if you're making the movie and you're writing a screenplay, you're thinking budget, you're thinking about a lot of things. This you could do whatever you want and have a little more fun. Did you feel that freedom?
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, it's funny. I was thinking about the budget like every day when I was
can
making
only
the film.
imagine.
I mean, really, yeah. Like,
Right.
part of the clever ideas I got for the movie had to do with not having much of a budget. You know, there was a screenplay that I wrote. It's called The Creep. It's actually on Amazon as well. I just don't really push it anymore because I prefer, like, you know, the stories. But that was going to be my first film. Until I called a friend of mine who does stunt work in LA, and she told me this finale scene, which involves a parking garage and, you know, like ropes and stuff, and it was gonna cost about 30 grand just to shoot that one scene.
Wow.
And my budget was only gonna be 25 for the whole film.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it was, so when I write a story as opposed to make a film, obviously I don't have to worry about the budget and I can get a little crazy with it. And I did. I mean, the film version of this was only supposed to take up about 15 minutes of the movie, you know? I made it into a novella, a 121-page novella. So obviously it's longer than what was going to be on screen.
And there's more of a story here.
There's more of a story. The general, like the basic story is the same. But
You got to
I
add
went
layers.
into way more detail. Yeah, way more detail. I have like whole little, like different narratives that I didn't have in the film, but they were absolutely essential to the general story. And it was just so much fun writing them, and I got to hone some characters that were maybe I added a couple of characters, and a couple of them I got to just go more in depth with, and yeah. So.
Have you thought about making this story into a full feature film after writing this book? That crossed your mind?
More than once. More than once. And I would love to one day. But honestly, at this point, I would probably be a lot happier if, like, somebody were to read this, like another filmmaker would read this and say,
take
okay,
it.
I have to adapt this into a film. I would totally feel responsible for it because it was my story originally.
Right.
You know, but I mean, that one, I'm pretty much complete creatively with that one. I don't really feel like I have to make it into a film myself, but I would love to see it become a movie, absolutely.
So is this for adults, kids, or both?
Pretty much anyone. I mean, certain like young kids may find it a little scary, you know.
So maybe like a 12 Eyes is a little bit R.L. Steinish or way above?
I like to think it's above R.L. Stein. I do think it is above R.L. Stein because the main characters are aged 21, and they're kind of falling in love during the course of the story. And there are some pretty dark spots in it. I mean, it involves death, it involves evil, you know. It's definitely not geared towards kids. That being said, I mean, I'm sure kids will get a hold of it here and there, and it's not that unsafe for them. It may scare them a little bit, but.
No, this seems really good. I can't wait to read it. But I was reading just like the summary and everything. It seems a little bit like Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I love stuff like that. I grew up on R.L. Stein and all of that stuff. So tell us a little bit about the plot.
So it takes place in 1981. A 21-year-old guy named Kevin he's not going to college. He doesn't really have any educational prospects or anything. He's still living at home. His parents are on a business trip in Europe, and he's house sitting for them. And he thinks he hears something in the attic, so he goes and checks it out. He thinks that they have rats. And he goes and looks, and he finds a pewter candelabra. And it's really weird. It's kind of creepy. It's kind of got this like thorny theme on it, you know. And he's never seen anything like it, really. It's not like just something you go buy in the store. It looks very old. And he immediately begins to have dreams that he's dying in horrible ways. And like each time he has a dream, it's like different from the last one. So it's like different deaths in his dreams.
After finding the candelabra.
After finding the candelabra, yeah. Meanwhile, there is a girl in his neighborhood who's his age. They used to go to school together, and he's always had a crush on her. And so he kind of enlists her to help him like figure out what this thing's all about and what's going on exactly. And to make a long story short, and not to give anything away, it involves a witch, and they've got to. I mean, they're getting terrorized basically, and they've got to figure out what's going on and how to stop it. And
I love this. Where can we buy this at?
Amazon. Type in Candelabra book, David Ajluni. Seriously Unsettling is my other book. If you type that in, odds are, like Seriously Unsettling book, odds are you can find all of it. I'm just kind of starting out. Like that one came out late last year. And then there's a short stories book that came out after it. And so I'm just like kind of brand new at this. You got to do keywords, but it's not hard to find on Amazon if you type in the right keywords. That one is actually free on Kindle Unlimited.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So when is the next book coming out?
Ah, boy. Like today, I wish. But truth of the matter is, it's in editing right now.
Okay, so what's that about? That's actually done. It needs to be edited.
It's done. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just I'm really taking my time editing the book because actually your copy there of Candelabra is not completely edited. But I thought it would be kind of interesting for you to have, just because it's kind of rare. Like if you order Candelabra now, you won't get that version.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's like half edited. So anyway, but yeah, I really want to do a good job of editing. I want to make sure there are no mistakes, and so I'm kind of taking my time on it. I actually finished it around Halloween of last year.
Wow.
So, yeah, and it's actually adapted from another short story that was going to be in my horror anthology film. Title's different. It's called A Friend Who Bleeds. And just to be really short about it, it's the vampire one.
This is so cool. So are you ever going to do a true story?
Probably not. I mean...
Or keep it fiction?
Yeah, I just find fiction a lot more interesting. I've always been very creative. I've always just made stuff up, I mean, now I am an enormous history buff. I love history, so does one of my sons actually. And I've watched lots of documentaries and historical pieces and so on and so forth. And I've watched my share of like historical dramas or like, movies based on history and so on. But I just don't really see myself ever doing it because I'm just so much more, when it comes to like being creative and making things, I'm way more interested in fiction. So, but now that being said, a lot of my fiction does have historical things in it. Like one of my books that I'm working on 2 at the same time right now, one of which is a Western. And I'm having an absolute blast brushing up on my Western history. So.
Thank you so much for coming on my show. And where can we follow you and see all the things that you're doing and have done?
Social media, just type in my name, David Ajluni, DavidAjluni. I have a website, whatever the header is for Google sites, and then David Ajluni, horror author. And you can find me. And like I said, if all else fails, type in Seriously Unsettling Book on Amazon, and you'll see the spelling of my name, and you just type it into Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Minds. It's a little social media app, kind of weird. I'm not sure about it yet. But
What is that? I haven't heard of that.
I mean, I wish I could tell you. It's just kind of like, it's just one of those bizarre social media apps that, yeah, and it sounds kind of interesting. And I thought it seemed more geared towards like professionals.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'm giving it a try. I've had about 2 or 3 posts on there. I'm not sure if I want to keep going with it yet, but I'm on Minds if anybody's familiar with Minds.
Well, thank you for teaching me about that. It's the first I've heard about it. Thank you so much for coming
yeah.
on my show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. Just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh, I must confess, dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.
Hi, I'm Sparkle Sujin, and I am the host of the Everything Sparkle Show. I would like to invite you to come and hang out with me every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, as I interview the world one guest at a time. Everything Sparkle is available on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and CMAC.tv. Plus, if you're in the Central California area, you can watch on Comcast Xfinity Channel 93 or AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Hope to see you there.
Thank you.